Hello students, welcome again. Good afternoon. And in this class, we are going to discuss some previous year's question based on the topics which we have studied in the theory class. And in this class, I'm going to tell you the correct answer to this question, also the concepts. Okay, so please be focused because ये जो ऑगस्टिन और रोमांटिक और विक्टोरियन मॉडर्न इन सबसे बहुत ज़्यादा क्वेश्चंस आपके एग्जाम्स में पूछे जाते हैं, चाहे वो यूजीसी नेट ना हो, टीजीटी पीजीटी भी हो, चाहे वो कोई असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर एग्जाम हो, इन एजेस से बहुत ज़्यादा क्वेश्चंस आते हैं. ठीक है, तो जो अब ये जो आपकी एजेस आएंगी, दीज आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, सो प्लीज़ play extra attention to these classes, and in case you have any doubt, you can just post in the chat box. I will be there to answer your doubts, and please make the class interactive because जब आप interact करोगे तो आपके concepts भी clear होंगे in case you have given the wrong answer. ठीक है, so please be participative. Fine. So first of all, let me please tell me in the chat box, am I visible and audible to you properly? Okay, fine. So now let's begin. Today's first question is Dr. Johnson's The Vanity of Human Wishes Expresses. ठीक है, तो मैंने डॉक्टर जॉनसन का वर्क द वैनिटी ऑफ ह्यूमन विशेस के बारे में प्रीवियस क्लास में बात करी थी, एंड आई हैव एक्सप्लेन टू यू द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क. सो टेल मी what this work talked about. ठीक है, is it Epicureanism, humanism, stoicism or cynicism? In the chat box. प्लीज टेल मी इन द चैट बॉक्स, आपको इन चारों ऑप्शन में से कौन सा ऑप्शन करेक्ट लगता है. किसके बारे में? सो आपको मैं एक क्लू दे सकती हूँ कि इन ऑगस्टिन एज पीपल वर राइटिंग सटायर्स. ठीक है, तो ये एज सटायर्स के बारे में मतलब जानी जाती है. एंड दिस वैनिटी ऑफ ह्यूमन विशेस इज अगेन अ सटायर, एंड इट इज एन इमिटेशन ऑफ सटायर एज वेल. एंड विच वॉज दैट सटायर? इट वॉज एन इमिटेशन ऑफ 10th सटायर ऑफ जुवेनाइल. अब जब सटायर आता है तो इनमें से कौन सा फीचर सटायर के साथ जाएगा? प्लीज टेल मी इन द चैट बॉक्स. ओके, सो द करेक्ट आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन इज सिनिसिज्म. ठीक है, तो मैंने जैसे आपको बताया था कि जो द वैनिटी ऑफ ह्यूमन विशेस है, इट इज द इमिटेशन ऑफ द 10th सटायर ऑफ जुवेनाइल. प्लीज इसको मार्क करिए बिकॉज दिस इज द पॉइंट ऑफ योर प्रीवियस ईयर्स क्वेश्चन एज वेल, एंड इट वाज एक्चुअली द फर्स्ट पब्लिश्ड वर्क containing Johnson's name on the title page. And this work is about the some Christian complex ethics, where Johnson advocated that God can be attained through virtue, and the poem was actually praised by Scott and T.S. Eliot. तो किसने प्रेज करी थी ये पोएम? स्कॉट एंड T.S. Eliot ने. ठीक है, सो इट इज फुल ऑफ सिनिसिज्म. ठीक है, सिनिसिज्म के बारे में ये पोएम मतलब डेडिकेटेड है. ठीक है, okay, let's move ahead now. Next question says that Dr. Johnson's the lives of poets carry critical and biographical studies of poets he admired. Okay, it does not however carry a life of Wordsworth. तो ये आपका assertion का statement है. Fine. What is the statement for reason? Reason says that Dr. Johnson singled out poets whom he not only admired but also adored. That is true, but this explains his omission of Wordsworth. So आपको बताना है इन दोनों में से कौन सा राइट ऑप्शन है. ठीक है, A is wrong but R is correct. A is true but R is false. A and R are true and neither A nor A is true. Good afternoon, Mosmi. Okay, please tell me which is the correct answer to this question. What do you think about the assertion and reason of this particular question? Okay, even if you don't know the correct answer, please make a guess. Okay, so आपको अपनी guessing power भी पता चलेगी कि अगर आप तुक्के लगा के आते हो एग्जाम्स में तो उसमें से कितने सही बैठते हैं. ठीक है, so this is a kind of a play game for you. So please answer in the chat box. Okay, so the correct answer is A is true but R is false. ठीक है. Okay, so basically, Dr. Johnson, the lives of the poets carries critical and biographical study of poets he admired, does not, however, carry the life of Wordsworth. As I told you, in this particular work, Johnson has mentioned all the 52 poets who has died when he was writing. And Wordsworth was of the Romantic age and Johnson was of the Augustine age. So Johnson, Wordsworth se pehle aaya tha, that's why the first is true. Dr. Johnson singled out poets whom he not only admired but also this explained his omission of Wordsworth. That is actually false, and for this reason he has not omitted Wordsworth. The reason is false. Next, okay, what is the correct chronological sequence of the following work? Moll Flanders, Pamela, Joseph Andrews, Tristram Shandy. जोसेफ एंड, तो इनमें जो जो कॉम्बिनेशंस दे रखे हैं उसमें से आपको बताना है कि जो करेक्ट क्रोनोलॉजिकल सीक्वेंस है वो किसका है. Okay, so I have talked about all these works in my lecture, so you must be knowing that किसका work कौन सा है, and according to that you can just categorize into a chronological order. Yes, please answer. Which is the correct chronological order? Is it A, B, C or D? In the chat box. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is A, Moll Flanders, Pamela, Joseph Andrews and Tristram Shandy. So all these writers are from Augustine Age, or you can say they are 18th century writers. Moll Flanders is a work by Daniel Defoe. So Daniel Defoe was writing during the first half of the 18th century. Pamela is a work by Samuel Richardson. Okay, it is a work by Samuel Richardson. Joseph Andrew is a work by Henry Fielding. And Tristram Shandy is a work by Lawrence Sterne. ठीक है, सो इनका ये जो वर्क्स है ये ऑथर से लिखे हैं. सो आई टोल्ड यू फर्स्ट वी डिस्कस अबाउट डैनियल डेफोए, मॉल फ्लैंडर्स था. देन सेकेंड हाफ ऑफ द 18th सेंचुरी जब आता है तब सबसे पहले राइटर थे सैमुअल रिचर्डसन, हु मेड सेंटिमेंटलिटी और सेंटिमेंटल नॉवेल्स फेमस इन लिटरेचर. ठीक है, उसके बाद जोसेफ एंड्रू द हेनरी फील्डिंग आता है, हु हैज रिटन द पैरोडी ऑफ Samuel Richardson's novel Pamela, that is Shamila. And Henry Fielding ने जो सेंटिमेंटल नोट था, जो भी बहुत इनॉर्मिटी में था, सैमुअल रिचर्डसन की नॉवल में, अपनी नॉवेल्स में उसने वो चीज़ रिड्यूस करी थी. इट हैज जस्ट टॉक्ड अबाउट अ डायरेक्ट वर्च्यूज. ओके, देन ट्रिस्ट्रम शैंडी इज ऑल्सो वर्क बाय लॉरेंस स्टर्न, हु केम लेटर second half of the 18th century. This was the correct order of the writers. So that's why I say कि read not the works in chronological order of a particular writer. Also read the writers chronologically, because आपको works लगाने को आ जाता है. जब आपको राइटर पता होगा पहले कौन आया था बाद में कौन आया था, तो यू कैन इजिली आइडेंटिफाई और यू कैन पुट इनटू सीक्वेंस द वर्क्स एज वेल. फाइन. नेक्स्ट, टू हुम डिड मैरी शेले फेमस वर्क फ्रैंकेस्टीन डेडिकेटेड. ठीक है, आपको मुझे बताना है जो मैरी शेले का फेमस वर्क है फ्रैंकेस्टीन, वो किसको डेडिकेट करा गया है. इज इट डेडिकेटेड टू लॉर्ड बायरन, क्लेयरमाउंट, विलियम गॉडविन और पीबी शेले? इन द चैट बॉक्स. Okay, please tell me to whom this work has been dedicated. Okay, if you just know the relations of the family, ठीक है, अगर आपको मैरी शेली की फैमिली का रिलेशंस पता होंगे कि हाउ व्हाट, मतलब कौन कौन उनके जो फैमिली में थे, दे वर द राइटर्स ऑफ द पर्टिकुलर पीरियड, यू मस्ट बी एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई दैट whom it has been dedicated. This is the biggest clue. It is about the family relation. Yes, in the chat box. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is William Godwin. Okay, so William Godwin was a poet whose wife Mary Wollstonecraft, उसकी wife कौन थी? Mary Wollstonecraft. okay, who has written the Vindication of the Rights of Women, which is a feminist work, and it is come into the literary theory of feminist theory, okay. And William Godwin was a person whose wife was Mary Wollstonecraft. उसकी जो daughter का नाम था, Mary Shelley was his daughter, okay. Mary Shelley was his daughter who got married to P.B. Shelley. ठीक है, so you can see the family hierarchy. William Godwin की wife Mary Wollstonecraft, his daughter was Mary Shelley who got married to P.B. Shelley. जो Mary Shelley ने work लिखा था Frankenstein, that was dedicated to his father William Godwin. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead now. In which of his voyages Gulliver discovered mountain-like beings? मैंने आपको Gulliver Travel in detail discuss करा था अभी. मैंने आपको 4 parts भी बताए थे Gulliver Travel के. In which part he went to where? ठीक है, तो कहाँ वो हर part में गया था. So you have to tell me in which part or in which part he went to a place where mountain-like beings are there, very large human beings are there, जो उसके size से बहुत बड़े थे. So which of the following is the true answer? The land of Lilliputians, the land of Brobdingnags, the land of Laputas, or land of Homonyms. Okay, so you have to tell me in the chat box. Okay, which is the correct option? So the correct option to this particular is the land of Brobdingnags. ठीक है, so मैंने आपको बताया था, in the first part he went to a place where very tiny creatures are there, and this was place of Lilliputs. Okay, so these were Lilliputs. So यहाँ पे बहुत सारा tiny creature थे, just like ants. Okay, next is the land of Brobdingnags. यहाँ पे giant creatures थे, बहुत ही बड़े creatures थे. They were very big in size. And that was the question asking. They were like mountains. Okay, so if you are a human being and you compare to yourself to a mountain, so the mountain की जो जो shape के जो people थे, that were belong to the Brobdingnags. Then a land of Laputans, जहाँ पे आपको बहुत ही people of philosophers, scientific people आपको यहाँ पे देखने को मिले थे. So this people have a dominance of knowledge. Then land of Homonyms, तो यहाँ पे आपको दो race मिलती है. One is the horse. Okay, the horse race होती है, that was actually showing the utopian society, and next was yahoos, that was actually illiterate people, and they were very barbarians. Okay, so this was all about Gulliver Travels by Jonathan Swift. Okay, next, the Augustine Age is called so because. Okay, so मैंने आपको Augustine Age के features बताए थे कि what was the important features of this particular age. So you have to tell me कि Augustine Age को Augustine Age क्यों बोलते हैं. Okay, this was the thing I have discussed in my lecture. Please tell me in the chat box why Augustine Age is known as Augustine Age. Is it because the King Augustus ruled over England during this period of time, or the English writers imitated the Roman writers during this period, or the English king was born in the month of August, or this was an age of sensibility? Okay, you have to tell me that. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is the English writers imitated the Roman writers like Homer, Virgil, Iliad, like all these writers who are actually being imitated by these people. ठीक है, and that's why this literature is called Augustine Age, because the classical writers were of the time of King Augustus. ठीक है, so अब यहाँ के writers को लगा था Augustine Age में कि now it's the time to reform our literature, because it was very much destroyed during the Restoration Age. Because writers at that point of time in Restoration Age, they were writing anything to make their both end meet. ठीक है, वो cheap romancer, vulgar romancer, they used to show sexual licentious in this particular work, and the literature became very deformed. And now the writers thought to improve the literature, and how they wanted to improve the literature by copying the classical writers of the King Augustus time. Homer, Virgil, all these writers were copied by Ovid, by these particular writers, but they followed the style of these writers, but they forgot to elevate the thought, or of these their writings. ठीक है, so that's why this age is also known as pseudo classical age, because उन्होंने कॉपी करने की कोशिश करी but वो पूरा सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो पाए. फाइन. ओके, ऑगस्टस रूल नहीं कर रहा था, that was not the reason, because उस समय ऑगस्टिन was not ruling. Queen Anne became actually the ruler at that point of time. The English king, or William first came, then William third came. The English king was born in the month of August. ये तो बहुत ही stupid है, नहीं इसको आप omit करोगे. This was an age of sensibility. मैंने आपको बताया था कि 18th century is also known as the age of sensibility, but 18th century का second part was known at the age of sensibility when Dr. Johnson started writing. When Samuel Johnson came as a writer, then that age came to the age of Johnson, age of sensibility, and that was second half of the 18th century. But first half में Augustine age को ही बोलते थे, and that was not, that's why this is not the right option. Fine, let's move ahead. Whom does Alexander Pope satirize in the portrait of Sporus? Okay, so you have to tell me कि Sporus के portrait में whom did Alexander Pope has satirized? ये मैंने आपको डिस्कस करा था when I was teaching you Alexander Pope. So you must be knowing the answer to this particular question. Is it Lady Wortley Montaigne, Joseph Edison, Lord Shaftesbury, or Lord Harvey? In the chat box. Okay, please tell me the answer to this question. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is Lord Harvey. So Lord Harvey in the portrait of Sporus, he has Alexander Pope has actually criticized him, and why he was criticized, because he used to consider Harvey as sexually perverse and a very malicious and a dangerous man. So in the form of Sporus, in the personification of Sporus, he has criticized him. He has also criticized one another character. Can you let me know in the chat box which another character has been characterized by Pope in epistles to Dr. Arbuthnot? Okay, so in another, he has also criticized Edison in the persona of what? In the persona of Epicus. Okay, so Epicus was a person in the, Atticus is a person, personification of Edison in this particular work. Okay, and Lady Wortley Montaigne was the beloved of Alexander Pope, whom he wanted to marry, but this lady refused his offer. Why? Because he was not a good looking man. He was a person with a lot of deformities, okay, physical deformity, and that's why Alexander Pope has written a work, Elegy on an Unfortunate Lady, where he has satirized Lady Wortley Montaigne. Okay, Joseph Edison was a contemporary in which he has satirized in this work in the form of Atticus. Okay, and Lord Shaftesbury. Okay, Lord Shaftesbury was not the part, so yes के बारे में आपको बात नहीं करनी है. Fine. This was something Lord Shaftesbury was from the Restoration Age, not from the Augustine Age. Okay, let's move ahead. Next, which famous romantic poem begins with the line "Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert"? Okay, is it ode to nightingale, to the cuckoo, to a skylark, or to the daisy? You have to let me know in the chat box. Yes. Who has, from which work this line has been taken? Can you know? Let me know in the chat box. Okay, so this line has been taken from To a Skylark, which is a work by P.B. Shelley. Okay, you just have to read this work, because again the lines from this work have been asked in your NET exams as well. So it is a great possibility कि जो आगे भी exams आ सकते हैं तो उसमें भी इसमें से line पूछी जा सकती है. ठीक है, so please read this work by P.B. Shelley. Next. Okay, now. Which among the following works by Daniel Defoe landed him in prison and the pillory? ठीक है, इन कौन किसमें से work, इसमें से किसने किस work ने उसको prison तक पहुंचा दिया था? And what was that work? The True Born Englishman, Captain Singleton, The Shortest Way with Dissenters, or Maud Flanders? You have to let me know in the chat box. Yes, which work is that? Okay, it is the shortest way with the dissenter here. Defoe has criticized the high Anglican Tories attitude towards the non-conformists. ठीक है, तो उस समय क्या था कि जब विलियम first was there, तो he started supporting Whigs. Okay, so that's why he was actually also known as following the reign of King Augustus, because he was making the living better for people. But when William III came to the throne, he started supporting the Tories. He started supporting the Tories, which was the high church people like Pope, bishops, and all that. So this was not liked by Defoe, and he criticized the Anglican or high attitude of the Tories in his work, The Short Way with Dissenters. Okay, and that landed him into prison because William III was not happy with this kind of behavior of Defoe. Okay, that's why he was sent to prison. Fine. Also, this William III was also being criticized by the Romantic writers. Okay, in P.B. Shelley, in his work The Revolt of the Islam, has criticized William III and by calling him as a mad, despised king. Okay, bold, mad, despised king. So this was William III has not been only criticized by Daniel Defoe, even the Romantic writers like Wordsworth, Shelley, all these have also criticized William III throne. You should remember that. Fine. Next. Byron's English Bard and Scottish Reviewers is about what? Is it about a survey of English poetry, evangelism in English poetry, contemporary literary scene, or the early English travelers? So, इसमें से कौन सा correct combination है? You have to tell me in the chat box. Okay, out of these, which is the correct combination? Okay, so the correct option is first and third. First and third. So survey of English poetry thi and contemporary literary scene thi. So what is the work this about? This English bards and Scottish reviewers. Basically, this Byron has written a work, Hours of Idleness. It was a collection of different poems and written prose by Byron. And this work was criticized by this romantic writers in Edinburgh Review. Okay, this Hours of Idleness by Byron has been criticized in the Edinburgh Reviews, and as a reaction of his criticism, he has criticized writers like Wordsworth, Southey, Francis Jeffrey in his work Scottish Bards, English Bards and Scottish Reviewers. Okay, so that's why it is a survey of English poetry, how poetry should be, and contemporary literary scene, how other writers are writing, and it was a criticism towards them as well. Fine. Next. About which 19th century English writer was it said that he had succeeded as a writer not by conforming to the spirit of the age but in opposition to it? ठीक है, out of this किसने किसके लिए कहा है, जैसे हिंदी में पूछा जाता है, so you have to tell me in the chat box. Okay, so the answer to this question is Hazlitt on Lamb. These were both the essays of the Romantic Age. Okay, so when last lecture I didn't talk about these two writers because I'll be talking about them in the next lecture, theory lecture. So you should remember that this phrase has been said by Hazlitt for Charles Lamb. Fine. Next. The epithet a comic epic in prose is best applied to. मैंने ये भी बताया था कि ये किसका writing style है, ठीक है? So you have to tell me for which work or which writer this comic epic in prose is applicable. That is Richardson's Pamela, Sterne's A Sentimental Journey, Fielding's Tom Jones, or Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Okay, please tell me in the chat box for which it has been said. Okay, so it has been said by Fielding's Tom Jones. As I told you that Richardson was responsible for introducing sentimentality to English literature, and Henry Fielding writing was different from Richardson, and he introduced a kind of writing in literature that is comic epic in prose, and that was applicable to Tom Jones. So basically what is comic epic in prose? इसमें क्या होता है, बहुत सारे कैरेक्टर्स होते हैं इन द पर्टिकुलर नॉवल, जिसमें आपको हर किसी प्लॉट में रिलेट करना पड़ता है. एंड what it is a kind of a comedy as well, because इसमें irony होती है, it is a mild satire and tone बहुत light होता है. दो अलेक्जेंडर पोप जैसा satirist की तरह harsh tone नहीं होता है, the tone is light which is intended to create some comedy. So that is comedy, comic epic in prose. Fine. Next is, in his 1870 review of Coleridge biographical literaria, Francis Jeffrey grouped the following poets together as the Lake School of Poets. And what were these poets? So you have to tell me who were the Lake School of Poets, or who belonged to the Lake School of Poets. Please let me know in the chat box who belonged to the Lake School of Poets. Okay, so as I told you, the answer is Wordsworth, Coleridge and Southey. As I told you, Romantic age has been divided into two generations. So the first generation and the second generation. So first generation में कौन था? Wordsworth था, okay, Coleridge and Southey. ठीक है, these were the belong to the first generation, and that's why they are known as the Lake School of Poets, because they actually gathered over there and they actually discussed about the new outcomes of this particular age. And the second generation is Shelley, okay, Keats and Byron. And first generation were more philosophical, okay, they were talking about the nature philosophies, pantheism को follow करते थे. And the second generation was more subjective, they rely more on emotion and sentiments. ठीक है, so these writers are called as Lake School of Poets. And let's talk about the by Coleridge biographical literaria. As I told you, it is a critical work of Coleridge in which he has discussed the distinction between the primary imagination and secondary imagination. And what was the distinction? I have talked about in my lecture. So please go back and look into that distinction. Fine. Let's move ahead now. The verse form of Byron's Child Harold was influenced by, ठीक है, ये जो चाइल्ड हैरल्ड वर्क है बायरन का, ये किससे इन्फ्लुएंस हुआ था? बाय मिल्टन, स्पेंसर, शेक्सपियर और पोप. इन द चैट बॉक्स प्लीज लेट मी नो. From whom this work was influenced? So I have not discussed about Byron in my theory lecture. I will be discussing that in my next theory lecture. But still, you should know that Child Harold किससे influence हुआ था. Okay, so it has been influenced by Spencer. So Edmund Spencer say the verse form of Byron Child Harold has been influenced. Next, Johnson's Dictionary of the English Language was published in the year. I've talked about the English Language Dictionary by Johnson, and it is also known as the Vasta Mole Superbus. And what's the meaning of this particular phrase? It means proud of its great bulk. So it was a very bulky dictionary, okay. And Philip Stanhope, who was a patron of Johnson, who has given money to Johnson to publish this dictionary. And in which year it was published? You have to tell me in the chat box. In which year it has been published? Okay, so answer is B. Very good. It is 1755. So in 1755, Johnson dictionary was published, and it was known as Vastamose Superbus, proud of its great bulk. Okay, and this year बार बार पूछा जाता है, even sequence लगाने के लिए भी आ जाता है chronological order में. So you should remember this year. In this year, Johnson published this dictionary, and with the publication of this dictionary, this age came to be known as Age of Johnson, because it was considered the greatest work which has been written for this particular age. And with the publication of this dictionary, the age came to be known as Age of Johnson. Fine. Next, which romantic poet coined the famous phrase "spots of time"? कौन से romantic poets ने ये phrase "spots of time" इसने coin करा था? Is it John Keats, William Wordsworth, Coleridge और Byron? मैं आपको क्लू देना चाहूंगी, इसमें से जो भी ऑप्शन है हम उसकी बात अपने लेक्चर में कर चुके हैं, ठीक है. तो जिसकी बात करी है वही आंसर होगा आउट ऑफ द 4 ऑप्शंस. Okay, so the answer is Wordsworth. So we have already talked about Wordsworth and Coleridge, and Wordsworth is the person who has given or who has coined this phrase "spots of time." So you have to directly remember this thing. Spots of time, किसने coin करा था? It was coined by Wordsworth. Fine. Next, Pope's The Rape of the Lock was published in 1712 in how many cantos? मैंने आपको बताया था कि हाउ व्हाट वाज द नो बैकग्राउंड ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्क एंड कब कब कितने काउंटोस पब्लिश हुए थे. सो यू हैव टू टेल मी कि इन 1712 व्हिच वाज द फर्स्ट पब्लिकेशन ऑफ रेप ऑफ द लॉक, उसमें कितने काउंटोस थे. ठीक है, इन द चैट बॉक्स कितने कांटोस में पब्लिश हुआ था? प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द चैट बॉक्स. Yes, very good. It is 2 cantos. So 2 cantos में ये publish हुआ था. So as I told you, Rape of the Lock basically it consists of a plot where Lord Peter has cut a lock from the Belinda's hair or Lady Fermor hair. ठीक है, तो उसमें क्या हुआ था कि जो ये मिस्टर कैरल था, ही वॉज अ फ्रेंड ऑफ पोप. ठीक है, उसने बोला कि यू शुड एक्चुअली राइट समथिंग टू एक्चुअली सॉल्व द फ्यूड बिटवीन दीज 2 फैमिलीज. तो उसने 1712 में लिखा वर्क इन 2 cantos. ठीक है, so after the publication of these 2 cantos, Lady Belinda got really very angry. वो बहुत ज़्यादा infuriate हो गई कि why you have just shown my personal life in this particular work. So he said that I am not actually satirizing you or mocking you in this work. I am showing the life of the fashionable girls, or I am trying to reform the feud between these 2 families. Then Lady Belinda actually got pacified, and then she has given the permission to this pope to publish this work, The Rape of the Law. And then in 1714, ठीक है, उसने फिर और उसके publications करे publish, and it actually got published in 3 cantos. So in 1712 उसने 2 cantos publish करे without the permission of Lady Belinda, and in 1740 he has published 3 cantos with the permission of लेडी बेलिंडा. एंड 1717 का जो एडिशन था उसमें उसने एक कैरेक्टर इंट्रोड्यूस कर, दैट इज क्लैरिसा, हु वाज द माउथ पीस ऑफ पोप. जो भी पर्सनल कमेंट्रीज, सोशल कमेंट्रीज, जो भी पैराडॉक्स उसने सब यूज करे कमेंट्री के फॉर्म पे, इट वाज सेड बाय क्लैरिसा, व्हिच इज एक्चुअली द माउथ पीस ऑफ Pope. So this was all about Rape of the Lock. You should remember this thing, and also remember that in Rape of the Lock, Lady Belinda has been compared to the sun, and this is again a question of UGC net कि इसमें बेलिंडा को किससे कंपेयर करा गया था? Belinda has been compared to sun. Fine. Let's move ahead. Okay. Next question is the term curtail sonnet was coined by. Okay. जो ये term है curtail sonnet. This is also one point you have to remember that इसमें इसका जो dog का नाम था, it was Shock. ठीक है, Shock was the name of his lap dog. Question of net, ये भी question आ चुका है. What was the name of the lap dog of Belinda? That is Shock. And Paul is a parrot. ठीक है, Paul parrot था, तो उसका भी क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. ठीक है, ऑल्सो रिमेंबर दैट एरियल वॉज ऑल्सो अ सुपर नेचुरल स्पिरिट, एंड शी इट वॉज एक्चुअली शी वॉज द the head of the supernatural machinery. So these were some of the important characters of Rape of the Lock. ठीक है, next is the term curtail sonnet was coined by. किसने ये curtail sonnet का term coin करा था? Is it John Milton, William Blake, Hopkins or Matthew Arnold? In the chat box. Yes, who has coined this term? Okay, who has coined this term curtail sonnet? Yes, very good. It is Hopkins. See, very good, Gohar. It is Hopkins. So basically, this curtail sonnet has been invented by Hopkins. ठीक है, and it consists of 11 lines. ठीक है, moreover, it is actually 10 and a half. तो वैसे हम लोग 11 बोलते हैं, बट इसमें जो लास्ट लाइन है वो हाफ लाइन होती है. दैट वे समटाइम इट इज सेड टू बी 10 and a half as well. ठीक है, एंड दिस sonnet curtail itself means shortened version. ठीक है, शॉर्ट इन फॉर्म. ठीक है, तो बेसिकली जो सोनेट हमारा नॉर्मल सोनेट होता है उसमें कितनी लाइंस होती है? उसमें 14 लाइंस होती हैं. एंड इन दिस कर्टल सोनेट इट इज 11 लाइंस, और यू कैन से 10 and a half लाइंस. दैट्स व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड अ शॉर्टेन सोनेट और द curtail sonnet. And this Hopkins has applied this kind of a sonnet in his work, and one of the famous work which is written in this sonnet form is Pied Beauty. Okay, so you have to remember this form, that in Pied Beauty he has used curtail sonnet. Yes, he was a religious poet. Very good. Okay, so yes, that was it for the questions. No, there's one more thing. Yeah, there's one more question, and I've already told you the answer to is the rape of the law. Belinda's lapdog is what? What is the name of the lapdog of Belinda's in the rape of the law? I've already told you. So if you have paid attention, so you must be knowing the answer to this question. What was the name of the lapdog? Okay, so the name was Shock. So Shock was the name of the Belinda's lapdog, and उसका parrot का नाम क्या था? उसका parrot का नाम था Paul. And Ariel also head of the supernatural machinery. And William Hazlitt has called the Rape of the Lock the greatest mock epic ever written. So this work was the mock epic. So William Hazlitt क्या है? The perfection of the mock epic form has been called by William Hazlitt for Rape of the Lock. No, it is not luck, it is shock. Okay, next. Which of the following poems feature the phrase the still sad music of humanity? So you must be knowing the answer to this question, because I have discussed innumerable times, not in my theory classes, also in my previous year question answer classes, I have discussed about this work. Okay, please let me know in the chat box what is the correct answer. Okay, what is the correct answer? Okay, so the correct answer to this question is Tintin Abbey. Okay, so this is sad music of humanity. So here Tintin Abbey is a place where the Wordsworth visits, and he recalls the memories when he visited for the first time. So he just recollects the memory, his communion with nature, man relation to nature. So all these themes have been touched upon in his work Tintin Abbey. Next, Verses on the Death of Swift is written by. ठीक है, किसने लिखा है Verses on the Death of Dr. Swift? Who has written the work Verses on the Death of Swift? It is a tricky question, okay? So you must be knowing the answer to it. Fine. So the correct answer is Jonathan Swift. So Jonathan Swift ने ही लिखा है Verses on the Death of Dr. Swift. Okay. Next. 18th century writer used satires frequently for. So जो 18th century मैंने बताया कि it is the age of satires. ठीक है, age of satires, parody, elegy. So ये सब लिखा जाता था in 18th century में. So why 18th century writers used to write satire very frequently? You have to tell me in the chat box. Is it for attacking human vices and follies, inciting the reading public, glorifying the culture of the upper class, or pleasing their women readers? Please tell me in the chat box. Yes, very good. It is attacking human vices and follies. Okay, so as I told you, people used to write satires like Alexander Pope, because of people who used to attack him, he used to attack them. ठीक है, so basically यहाँ पे यही सब चलता था कि like people are actually attacking human vices and follies, because यहाँ पे age of reason थी, age of sensibility थी. So so that's why whatever is not preaching is basically the main theme of this particular age. Preaching, didacticism, so हर कोई ना कोई किसी को teach कर रहा होता था, and that's why they were satirizing other writers as well. That's why it is attacking human vices and folly. जो भी lack होता था human nature में, जो भी human nature की shortcomings होती थी, that has been portrayed in the works of 18th century writers. Next, Byron's The Vision of Judgment is a satire directed against. किसके अगेंस्ट ये सटायर लिखा गया है? प्लीज टेल मी इन द चैट बॉक्स. To whom this satire has been directed? Yes. Please answer. So it is against Robert Southey. So Robert Southey has written A Vision of Judgment, to which this Byron has attacked in The Vision of Judgment. So बस आर्टिकल का फर्क है, ये द है और ये A Vision of Judgment है, ठीक है. तो पहले किसने लिखा था? पहले रॉबर्ट साउदी ने लिखा A Vision of Judgment, जिसको बायरन ने अटैक करा in his work The Vision of Judgment. Fine. Let's move ahead. The Rime of Ancient Mariner is about. तो मैंने Rime of Ancient Mariner की भी आपको स्टोरी बताई थी. So what is it all about? A perilous adventure in the sea, or the accidental killing of an octopus, the curse of sea god, or the guilt and expiation of the ancient mariner? In the chat box, please let me know. So this work has been directed to what? Okay, so this work is about the guilt and expiation of the ancient mariner. So I told you that he has killed an albatross, and as a punishment, albatross was hanging around his neck. Okay, so that's why he was when every mariner or every sailor got actually frozen, they prayed to God to actually be merciful towards them and just forgive them, and that's how these mariners were restored into the normal state. And as a punishment, the albatross was hanging around this mariner's neck. And what did he learn as a lesson? He learned that he should learn to actually appreciate the natural beauty and preserve the nature. And this albatross was a symbol of guilt for shooting at some natural object. Okay? So that's why the guilt and expiation of the ancient mariner was the main theme of this particular work. Yes, it is D. Okay, Shelley was expelled from the Oxford University to the publication of. ठीक है, तो PB Shelley के बारे में हम बात करेंगे next lecture में. But you should remember that he has been expelled from Oxford for writing something. And what was that work? Is it The Revolt of Islam, The Necessity of Atheism, The Triumph of Life, or The Mask of Anarchy? Yes, very good, Gohar. The Rime of Ancient Mariner is the first poem of the lyrical ballad collection. And the last poem is what? Tinton Abbey. Tinton Abbey is the last poem of the lyrical ballad. Okay, what is the correct answer to this question? Yes, very good. It is B. So, Necessity of Atheism, in this, after publishing this work with his friend. So, this Necessity of Atheism was written by P.B. Shelley with his friend T.J. Hogg. So, T.J. Hogg was a friend with whose collaboration he has written the Necessity of Atheism. And after the publication of this work, Shelley was expelled from Oxford. Okay? It was something against religion. So, that's why he was expelled. Fine. So that was all about the question of the previous year. So I have discussed all the questions that have come in your previous year and that are important. Okay. So मैंने इसमें से जो second generation of the romantic writers that I have not discussed in my theory lecture, that I will be discussing on the lecture which will be on Monday, that is 16 Jan. And in that I will be also discussing the important writers of the Victorian age as well. Okay. So I hope your studies are going good and you are enjoying the class. If you are enjoying, then please like the session and comment in case there's some improvement you need or some more things you need in the lecture. Okay. And in case you also have doubt, you can post in the comment section. I will be answering your doubt. And please subscribe to the channel, click on the bell button so that you can get the update of the coming sessions of different various subjects related to UGC NET exam. Okay. So please stay safe, take care of yourself, and goodbye.